I have no secrets from all of you. You always know everything that's going on. And a topic that has been really important for me recently is succession. I'm thinking about what's my game plan when I decide it's time to hang up my headphones or hang up my interior design clients, stop servicing my interior design clients. And I am so happy to introduce you to my lawyer, Wendy Estela. I met Wendy at High Point, which is a great place to go to meet wonderful interior design related people. Lori Lazure introduced us. Thank you, Lori. We love her. And I started talking to Wendy about my struggle to figure out my succession plan. And Wendy immediately understood the struggle because she talks to designers like me all the time. That's her job. We had one brief meeting. All my questions are answered. All my issues are resolved. And the only thing I have to figure out is how to wrap my head around what date I want to pick in terms of how I'm going to do all this. So I've got some wiggle room. I've got a nice long runway. It's not tomorrow and it's not in the next few years, but it's definitely kind of a mental load to think about. I invited Wendy on the podcast. You may know Wendy because she is the guru who has helped us resolve the challenge of being able to legally provide project management for our clients. If you have attended a seminar with Wendy that we've hosted at Business of Design, or you're going to attend the seminar, I promise. What I love about Wendy is she only tackles those issues she's expert in, and she resolves them quickly without nonsense. She has tons of clients, so she's not looking for ways to stretch out her engagement. She just gets the job done, and I respect and admire that, and I love it. So we're talking today on the show about two things. Number one, we're talking about what is intellectual property? What does it mean to you? Do you have some? How can you get some? How can you protect it if you do have it? And we're talking about succession. And everything we're talking about is applicable to anyone running a business, period. Whether you plan to sell it in the future or not, or pass it on to someone, everything we're talking about is applicable to everyone. So I'm very happy to introduce Wendy to you. As I said, Wendy's a lawyer. She focuses on legal services that are tailored to design and creative industries. She loves working with interior design professionals. You know that she does because she completely gets me. Whatever I say, she goes, "Oh yeah, I've seen this, I've seen this, I've seen this." I'm like, "Oh, that is me to a T." She also believes in supporting diverse entrepreneurs and small businesses, women-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned, LGBTQ-owned startups and nonprofits. So she's got a big heart. Wendy holds a BA in Spanish with minors in communications and international studies from Boston College. She has an LLM in environmental law from Pace University and an LLM in insurance law from the University of Connecticut. She has a lot of initials, is what I'm saying. She's very smart, has a lot of initials. She's admitted to practice in the states of New York, Connecticut, and Utah. And she works with clients across the country. And she works with me. And sometimes I'm in LA and sometimes I'm in Canada. So I guess she's international as well. Instrumentally useful in helping me figure out my next steps for my business and how I can legally offer project management services. I adore Wendy. I think you're going to like her right away. If you like me, you're going to like her because you just appreciate a no nonsense, let's get right to the point approach. And that's what she has. Quick announcements from Cheryl, and then we're going to jump into this episode. If you're curious what intellectual property is or how you might set your business up for succession, this is the show for you. We're so glad you're here.
Thanks, Kimberly. Well, I want to give you the full details for our upcoming webinar on project management. If you are offering project management services as an interior design professional, it's crucial to understand the legal implications, especially since the rules seem to change between provinces and states and countries. After more than 10 years speaking with countless lawyers, we are finally ready to give you the clarity and confidence you need to take on project management, protect your business, and serve your clients legally. Business of Design has teamed up with today's guest, attorney Wendy Estela, and together we have finally found the answer. We have a checklist and a process to follow that will allow you to run your projects through the BOD 15-step project management strategy exactly as prescribed from start to finish by legally taking the lead as project manager on your projects. We are going to provide you with the legal language you need to add to your contract, regardless of what business of design contract you are using, that will allow you to hire trades on behalf of your clients. And what this also means is that you are going to be able to reach the next level of profitability in your business. We're going to break it down, we're going to give you the facts, and we're going to make sure you leave with a clear action plan. Registration is open, regular price $6.95, and as always, members are going to save, and our member price is $3.95. You're going to save $300. When we do these webinars or contracts or anything outside of membership, it is all in support of the systems that we teach through Business of Design membership, which is why member pricing is so significant. We want you to be a member first. We want you to learn the systems. We want you to start implementing everything we teach at Business of Design, and everything else that we do is in full support of that. So you can certainly go ahead and register, but please consider becoming a member. Get started with the BOD 15 if you are not already into it, and then join us for this important, very long awaited webinar. Again, registration is open. Go to businessofdesign.com/events. Email me, Cheryl@businessofdesign.com, if you have any questions. And again, register and save the date. It's happening May 27th, 12 p.m. EST. It's a 2-hour webinar. We're going to have lots of time for questions. And again, you are going to walk away with the legal language you need to add to any contract in order to take on project management on behalf of your clients. And we're going to provide you with a checklist to ensure you have all your bases covered. We want to make sure that you're doing this right, and we are here to help. So again, join us at businessofdesign.com/events. Get your ticket, and we will see you on the 27th. Thanks so much.
Wendy, it's great to see you.
Hi.
Hi. I was really surprised. Off the top of the show, I read your bio and all the things you've done, but you were a Spanish major? Stop it.
It was, yes.
Oh
I
my
always have
gosh.
thought that you need to study something that you love, and I've always loved just culture and languages because
Oh,
my dad's from the Philippines and the family came from Spain. So they're Spanish Filipino, and he always talked about that legacy. And then my mom's side of the family's Polish, like blonde, green eyes.
wow.
So, I didn't know a lot about my culture growing up, so I really connected with it through language and
I
just kind of
love
learning about
that.
Spain and the Philippines and all that. So yeah,
That's very
yeah.
cool. He
And I
estado
just,
intentando aprender español, pero muy
bueno,
difícil, muy
sí, es
difícil. Ay,
difícil.
ay,
Hay
ay.
que
And I know
practicar.
it's way easier than learning English. So I can't
Yeah.
tell you how stupid I feel that I work at it, and I
Oh,
just don't seem to ever get better.
I've got a tip for you, which maybe is offline, but like I actually still take online courses, online class with a tutor once a week, and it's an online, you just talk with her. We just chat like this. It's so much fun.
Is it
It's called
verbling?
Yeah, it's just it's conversations. It's called
Verbling.
Spanish 50. No, it's called Spanish 55.
Spanish 55. I'm writing this
Yeah.
down. It's hilarious.
I love it. We're doing a plug for them.
Every episode
Get a
begins with
sponsor.
me like some personal data that everybody Spanish
No,
55.
it's amazing. And I've done it since COVID because during COVID I was like, you know what? I want to get back into this because I didn't grow up speaking Spanish, just a little bit with my dad, but my
Wow. Because
mom
you'll
was
lose it if you don't
very
use it.
American. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
my dad spoke it, but we weren't using it all the time. And then I was like, I'm going to start using it in business, which I thought I ended up not. Instead, I'm working with
Right.
all designers. But I thought I'd go this other path and like work with the Spanish speaking community and everything.
Well,
The
I
next thing
very much wish we could do this entire episode in Spanish, but I'd be lost.
yeah, maybe one day. One day
Stop
we'll
one
try
day.
it.
That is my goal. My very best friend growing up in Los Angeles was this Mexican woman. She's still my best friend, is Mexican, and her parents both Spanish speaking, but they wanted their children desperately to speak English, so they did not teach. They had 8 children. They did not teach them to
That
speak
was just the
Spanish.
time. My dad came from the
Ah,
Philippines and he's like, My dad is dark skinned Filipino, and he's like, I'm a European white man. We are speaking English. We're
Right.
American. They
I
wanted to
get
just
it.
blend.
I
So
get
it's
it.
really interesting and confusing, growing up that way.
Yeah.
But it's a topic for another discussion,
It
but it's
is.
it's so interesting. And I don't know. I always wanted to study something I enjoy, and it kind of
Nice.
translates even to now, like working in a field I love, which is design. So
Right.
it's great. It prevents you from burning out, whether it's school or your career or whatever. You have to love
I
what you
agree.
do.
I agree, and find those little passion projects. But
Yeah.
actually, the conversation is gonna segue. Watch how smoothly this segues. We're talking about a succession plan for understanding your culture and learning Spanish. And now we're talking about a succession plan for your business. The same
Yes.
thing, right? You want to pass on what's been in what you've inherited, and you want
Yeah.
to pay it forward in some way if you can. And we have been talking a lot about succession planning lately because that's my current kind of like, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? How does it work? And there's just so much to talk about. And Wendy, this is your field of expertise. What breaks your heart when you meet a designer and they want to talk to you about succession? What's the thing that they've forgotten to take care of that would be so easy to take care of while you're in your
God,
business?
let me tell you something. It's such a great question because as I was doing my notes for today, I was thinking like I've got one set of notes here that say, really, the preparation steps are the things that are also the things you should do to run a successful business. So it's the same thing. There's not if you've got your business running tightly, okay, and most importantly, I'll get to that one answer of the one thing, okay? Most importantly, you're running it tightly, you have your processes, you're in control of your intellectual property and you really know what it is, you can define it and you know that you own it. That's the key. I think with designers, what I've seen the most is they've lost control of really what makes up their business. And there's a focus on it's the person, it's the name of the business, it's the personal brand. It is, but it's not. It's more importantly, it's the intellectual property. Who owns the designs, the look and the feel, the actual instruments of service, the actual archives of that business? Who owns it? And how do you know if you own it? So, the follow-up questions are for all the people that worked for you over the years, did you get an assignment of their IP? Because if you don't have that tightened up in your business,
Right.
you don't technically own it. So that question comes up in the life of a business. A designer comes in and works under me or an intern and they create something and they leave and they put it on their own Instagram page. Who does it
Right.
belong to?
Right.
And there should be an answer there, but it's not always the answer that the designer wants to hear because without the right paperwork in place, it belongs with who created it.
Okay,
So,
I want you to
so
take a step back
that's a
for all of
lot.
us and talk to us. Yeah, for sure it is, but there's just so many good follow-up questions. But first is, what is intellectual property?
Oh,
Why
okay.
why should we care about it? What
So,
exactly should we be thinking about?
all right. So every designer should know what intellectual property is, and it's basically just it's the stuff that belongs to your business. There's probably a real definition of it, but
Stuff
it's,
works.
everyone thinks copyright, right? They think, oh, copyright, stuff, ideas. It's
I think
really what it comes
photographs.
down. It's the
That's what
photographs. It
I
comes down
think photographs.
to, in this industry, I say it's the deliverables, it's the tangible of your business. Okay. So yeah, I mean, if you let's just start with like as a design business that's probably on the path to being sold or getting ready, to have some sort of succession planning, look back at what are your design archives? Like what is the history of your business? Okay. So now you could look at it in modern times, we're looking at Instagram pages, like everything on it, just the Instagram page, just that alone. Who does that belong to? Does that belong to the person at the business? Does it belong to the business? Does it
Doesn't
belong
it
to the person
belong
who
to
started it?
Facebook?
It's
I mean,
whoever, well, who has the login? I mean, all of these things. You have to start making a list of what does the company own. So Instagram page, the photographs on the Instagram page, the actual photographs, they belong to the photographer, but you have certain rights in them. Make sure your business has the rights in them, not individual designers in your business. So if you have an LLC, those rights should be in the LLC name, not the individual. The the actual client files, like those designs that you've created, those don't belong to the client. We know that. We put that in the contract. They don't belong to the client. They belong to your business.
Mhm.
So the client has limited rights, like a license to use what you created, but those past projects are what would make up your archive as your business. So that's all part of your business. More intellectual property, client lists, okay, marketing lists. It's anything. You can
Okay.
define it. You can say this is the intellectual property of our business. And it kind of also overlaps with assets, but people wouldn't think of a client list as something particularly, you know, what is it? They think of it more as marketing, but if you've developed it and really built it up and been strategic about it, it's certainly something that's protected.
So are you saying also that if you have employees or even independent contractors that you want to make them aware of what is your intellectual property and therefore cannot be taken to their next place of business?
Yeah, so a couple of things, and I'm sure this is all over the place, but it'll make sense. Okay, so if you have workers, you either have independent contractors or employees, right? Typically, it's one or the other. Many designers start with independent contractors that become employees. Um, Either way, you have to make sure that whatever they create belongs to your business,
Mhm.
okay? Because the default rule is that whatever they create, as far as like CAD drawing, hand drawn design, anything that's tangible that they reduce to a drawing, they own the copyright on it as the person who created it.
I
They
didn't
do,
know
not your
that.
business.
I
It's by
thought
default.
I did not know that. That is
By
good to know.
default, it is with the person that created it, not the business that created it. So if you have an employee, your handbook should say that you have, or a contract should say that the employee assigns all rights to what they create in the course of their job to the business. Okay?
Can I just say this is really interesting? I didn't know this, and I had for many years a line of furniture, and the drawings for the line of furniture were done by someone other than me who worked for me, an employee. I don't know that I had anything like that in my contract, and
Yeah.
that's just really that just shows you
It's
how
called,
quickly it
yeah.
can turn to fall apart.
It's called a work for hire. Okay.
Mhm.
So the other thing, if you have a contractor, the nature of the way that they're working for you is by contract, and their contract should have that language. So
Mhm.
employee, it's either going to be in your employee handbook, or when you give them an offer of employment, you put in additional terms of that offer. Okay. With a contractor, it's in their written contract, but it should say that it's a work for hire. Everything they create when they're with you belongs to your firm. I'll just keep saying firm, okay? Because it's, we're thinking of firm, even if it's a one person designer, belongs to your firm. And they agree to assign everything to you if that's necessary, if you have to execute another document to say we're assigning it. Because otherwise, it's whatever, if you are a designer working at a firm and you create something, it's yours.
Right. This is
Okay.
what I love about this is the topic of succession is probably not appealing to 80% of listeners because they're thinking, I'm never going to sell my business. But what you're talking about is applicable to all businesses.
What happens is on a very high level, you have to tighten up your business to make it something that somebody would want to buy.
Right.
Because what I have seen, back to your original question, what like breaks my heart here when I see this is the person who's built a really successful business. They have really trusted their employees over the year. Maybe they've had years where they've had one or two key people.
Mhm.
The person that owns that business is slowly phasing out, but they're not communicating well with their employees. Okay. But the employees are getting nervous. They're like, he's going to retire, she's going to retire. What's happening? That person's phasing out. The employees are getting nervous. The employees are starting to talk. Then they're like, I got to go elsewhere. Okay. So now they're jumping ship because the owner is phasing out, maybe not as locked in as my kids would say, as,
Yeah.
as they have been previously. And the key employees who've actually been doing 90% of the work
Right.
leave. Okay. So now the owner's there. He's like, well, so and so just left. She brought all my clients with her. but
Mhm.
she had no reason not to, and those clients are going to follow her anyway. So
Right.
who was wrong there? Okay, that's a
Yeah.
very,
It's
very, very
always
common
it's always
fact
the
pattern.
owner. The owners, it's
But
our
yeah, because I'll
responsibility.
tell you, the owner made a mistake because he didn't have the right paperwork in place with that employee.
Right.
Who knows if he had the assignment of the deliverables and the intellectual property.
Right.
Who knows
Probably
if he had
not.
a non-solicit agreement in place
Right.
with that worker, with that
Right.
employee? Probably not, because it's been many years that the person's worked there. So
Yeah.
that person did everything that was within her right to do, just leave. But
Right.
now the value of that person's business, the owner, has
It's
tanked because
diminished.
all the clients are gone. He had no control over the design. She can take them and start her own business and set up a portfolio and say, hey, I did this when I worked at XYZ firm. She's not
Right.
breaking any rules.
Right.
Okay. She's giving credit. There's a fair way to do it if you're on the other side of that equation. Okay.
Yeah.
And now this guy's got nothing to sell.
Right.
What does he sell? His name? What good is his name? What if you're a buyer and you're going to buy the name of a business? How much is that worth to you?
Right.
Which this kind of gets into the next discussion of how do you value a business? What's the valuation? And that's another consideration we'll talk about. But that's a scenario that doesn't that happens a lot because there's a failure of planning. And
Right.
there's also this kind of idea that no one wants to think about it. Just like,
Yeah, it happens so much faster than you think it's going to happen. It's like, wait a minute. Like I finally reached this age where people say to me all the time, "Are you going to retire?" I'm like, "What? Like, there's something on my forehead? Like, I
yeah,
finally am good at what I'm doing. Like, why is everybody asking me?" They're asking because it doesn't last forever. Nothing lasts forever. And even if you don't think, let's say you're 30, 40, 50, you don't think you're going to sell your business. Everything you do in preparation of selling your business is good for your business, period,
that's
full
what I'm
stop.
saying.
Yeah.
And
So,
the other thing, yeah. Oh,
yeah,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
No, you go ahead. You're the expert.
So the other thing is when you start a business, okay? I always say this to my clients starting a business. I say when you start it, your goal is not only to make money and run a business, but your real goal is to build something that you can sell.
Mhm.
That's the ultimate win. It's not running that successful business. It's
Right.
building something that you can ultimately sell, right? I mean, think of
Yeah.
Shark Tank. Think of Shark Tank, right? All these people were excited about their businesses, but the big win is when they can sell it. So if you think that way, you're already creating your succession plan because
Yeah.
you're going to pick your heir apparent. They're probably working right with you. But what are they taking? What are they going to invest in? So
Mhm.
you've got to create something that you can package up and be like, this is what I'm selling to you. Oh, another part of intellectual property, obviously, trademark. So if you've trademarked your business name, like all these things, it's sort of the stuff of your business. And in a service business, it's kind of it's a little hard to define. You don't have assets like they would have at like if you're buying I just did a purchase and sale agreement for a pizza restaurant. Okay. So
Right.
there's like
Right.
ovens and things like that. But for,
Yeah.
for a design business, your assets and your intellectual property are, the client list, the designs, the partnership agreements, the licensing agreements, like that's the stuff you're selling. It's
Mhm.
intellectual property and assets, and they kind of
Mhm.
blend together. But you've got to start thinking in your day-to-day running the business, like what is it aside from me that makes up this business? And when
And
you can start to define that, that's what
yeah.
has a price tag next to it.
Right. And I think an exciting area for designers to think about, if you do, let's say you don't have that right-hand person that you think you're going to pass your business on to, the next bucket I would be looking at are architecture firms that want an interior design,
Absolutely.
because there's just so much money in interior design. Sadly, not the way most designers do it, but the fact is architects are figuring that out. Like, hey, wait a minute, we could triple our
Yeah.
profitability by adding
Builders
interior
too.
design. Yeah, and
Builders too,
builders. Yeah,
developers. I mean, they
yeah,
could bring the whole function in-house. They could have, they could hire somebody and be like, here's your kind of your turnkey business
yeah,
if it's packaged the right way.
right.
So again, what are you for succession? Okay, so I have a funny feeling just because I work with hundreds of designers that the designer's thought process is this. Not, oh, I'm going to sell my business and make money, but how am I going to step away and continue to service my clients? I almost guarantee that, actually, I guarantee
Wait,
it,
I don't even
that
know what that means. What does that mean? Step away and
how do
continue to
I
service.
retire without dumping my clients? I want to make sure they've got their designer to go to.
Oh,
They're thinking
okay.
about the designer. They're not thinking about making money. They're not thinking
No,
about
oh
how do I
no,
cash out.
absolutely not. We're not thinking about that. In fact, I think we
No,
spend our days thinking about how we can lose money. Like just we spend our days figuring out
like
how can
I
I work for less?
also
That's how we're
guarantee,
wired.
yeah,
Yeah.
here's another one. I would bet on this that there are many designers who are like, I'm just going to give it to this person who has worked with me for 25 years because she's been so awesome.
100%.
You
100%.
know, and that's it. And that's great. That's wonderful. Okay. But again, it just like when we charge for fees, like charge for your services, you should be
Yeah.
compensated. If you built something from scratch, that's great. You want to give it to somebody, but if
Yeah.
you're doing it at your own expense and you're going to have to take a part-time job in retirement, that is not the
Tragic.
way to think.
Because
You know?
the fact is, you could actually build a long on ramp with help. You need help. Like you need a Wendy. I don't know how to do it. I need a Wendy. I use a
Yeah.
Wendy. In fact, I use this Wendy.
Yeah.
But you could build a long on ramp for that employee who maybe doesn't have a lot of cash to lay down, where they could buy
Right.
into your business over a period of 5, 10 years, and you get something for it rather
You
than
can
nothing
gift
for
them
it.
pieces of it
Yeah.
as a bonus. You know, you
Yeah.
could say, hey, listen, over 5 to 10 years, I'll start giving you a percentage. So,
Yeah.
you think about it and it's not complicated. And a lot of people like they file to get their LLC when they start their business. They never think about that again after that first day. They just
Yeah.
file the paperwork. They're like, I'm protected. Okay, so the LLC is typically, or even a corporation, because some people are still organized as a corporation. I'm going to use an LLC as an example, but it's the same thing. So with an LLC, think of it as a pie, right? And you have pieces of a pie. There's 100% of this pie. Okay, it's like there's interests, shares of it. If you're the sole owner, you own 100%, but you can give away little percentages of it. Everyone knows
Mhm.
that. That's equity
Yeah.
ownership. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can start giving that away and get to a point where you give it all over a
In lieu
period of
of
time.
payment, like
In
in lieu
lieu
of
of payment, you
payment.
can gift it. You can
Yeah.
gift it. You can
Yeah.
have somebody buy into it. There's different ways to do it. But you can say, like, look, as an employer, I really value you and I want you to stick around and I want you to understand that I take you seriously and I'm going to incentivize you by making you a part owner, 5% owner.
I
And
just
in, X number of years, this percent owner. And then at the end, we could have a one-time payout for the remainder, but it's yours at that point.
I just want to caution anybody listening. Designers are incredibly generous and not wired to self-preserve financially. So I just want to caution anyone against making any sort of a deal like this without talking to
Yeah,
a Wendy, because we just give away the farm. Like I've had so many
agreed.
designers say, I want to give them a bonus that's like 20% of their salary. Well, how did you come up with that number? Oh, I just want it to be good. Like I like, are you kidding me? Do you know
Yeah.
how much profit that represents?
And
Like
and
for no
in
you
preparation for the call, I looked up valuation for a design business and it said typically these businesses sell for 2 to 3 times the annual profit. Okay. And then there's a way to do an earnout, which is a little bit more complicated, but basically it ties it's a payment structure in which part of the purchase price is contingent on the business meeting certain performance goals after the sale. So
right.
there's a way to do that too. So you're paying something, but only if the business continues to be
Yeah.
successful. The other thing is if you're thinking about
So it has to be
retiring,
able to run without you,
it has to continue without you. So
or you
for the
stick
ones that
around
are
for a
like,
few years.
right, and that's the other thing. So, if you want to retire in 10 years, you might sell the business in 5 and then have a
Right.
5-year contract where you're still on while
Makes
you
sense.
transition the business. Okay, there's that.
Can you hear my
It's
dogs? We're dog
no.
sitting today. It's if they're trying to hump each other. This is a game we play pretty much every day. So sorry if you're listening to this.
Oh, Well, you know what? I purposely am not at home because my dogs would be talking to your dogs right now, and it might
Exactly,
be more
exactly.
interesting than this. I know this is a very dry topic, but
No,
the other thing
I
about
think this is
succession.
fascinating. I wish
Okay,
I'd
so
heard
you
it
think
years
six?
ago.
Oh my gosh, there's so much. I mean, I could just give a lecture on it, but it'd be extremely boring. So the other thing to think about is not all succession, or I guess next generation of the business is planned. Sometimes it just happens for like unfortunate reasons. Like
Yeah.
I've dealt with situations where there have been two partners and they never talked about their exit strategy, and they've been best friends for years. And over the years, their design visions kind of, start to go a little bit apart, but they've had a successful business. Now one wants to retire, the other wants to stay. What happens when you have partners? It's one thing when it's one person, it's
Oh
not that
yeah.
hard. The hardest part is the price at that point with one person.
Yeah.
When you have two people and they have different schedules on when to retire. And now what happens is, you've heard about partners buying each other out. You've heard that term. What does that actually mean, right? It means that you've got two partners. One could be, let's say, 55 years old and she's ready to go retire. And the other one's like, I want to work for 10 more years.
Mhm.
Now, what happens, and this is real factual situations that happen, you've got a huge book of business of clients. They've
Mhm.
come in a number of ways. Okay, you both live in the same community, right? You've got this huge book of business. One year, one of you worked really hard, the other one had some issues and couldn't work for whatever reason. The next year, the other one stepped up. One year, one of them got a huge project and the other one had less business. Now we fast forward to today and we're trying to figure out how the retiring person can sell her portion of the business to the person who's remaining.
Wow.
How do you figure that out? And when I tell you that is a mess, if you don't have a plan in place way in advance, it is. And I can help craft those. So basically, the answer is this: you have to, and this is the part about running a tight business now. First of all, I always tell my clients, listen, my goal here is not to just help you make money, but I really mean it when I say I'm concerned for your mental health, like you're enjoying your life and being happy.
Yeah,
Okay.
for
Because
sure.
these things are this is your business, but it's your life. And when they start to go sideways, it really messes you up. So,
Mhm.
what I would say is early on, if you bring on a partner, you figure out, how do we define whose client is whose?
Yeah.
Who originated this client? Is it a referral? Or are you even going to do that? Are you just going to say we're going to split everything 50-50, even if one of us didn't do as much work? How are you going to handle that if one of the partners is really the one doing everything? Are you going to just really split it down the middle? I mean, there's all these
The
things. So
time for that conversation is way before you need it.
these
Way, because you
businesses
can have an
are,
more unemotional conversation about that when it's theory, but when it's skin in the game, oh my
you
gosh.
do it when you are starting out. It's just like a prenuptial agreement. Like if we
Yeah.
could all go, I'm
Yeah.
divorced. Okay. If
There
you
you
could go
go.
back and have a prenuptial agreement, like, everyone thinks they're taboo, right? If I could go back to before I got married and have done one, that would have been very easy, to
Yeah.
exit. It's the
Yeah.
same thing when you bring on a partner, or if you look at it just as yourself, like if I'm going to make a deal with myself and this is how we're going to get out of here eventually, you got to plan up front like that. This is a business. It is going to end. That's the other thing. Just like we are all going to die. I'm sorry to say it, but someday
Oh, what
that's
a
the one
bummer, Wendy.
thing.
How do you know that
But
for sure? You don't know for sure.
all businesses end.
Yeah.
Okay? All businesses come to an end. So what does the end look like? Do you want to just see what happens, or do you want
Oh,
to have a roadmap?
yeah.
So in a business, you would think you could take the emotion out of it. You
Mm.
would think, but you can't. So it's hard. So you got to do it as early as possible before you've built up that emotion and really be like, what do I want this to look like?
Yeah, and can I just say, if you do all this, if you do all the things, you get advice and you do the things that you've been advised to do by Wendy or someone like Wendy, and you decide not to sell it down the road, you've lost nothing because you are running a better business in the meantime. You are
Listen,
running a
focus
healthier
on
business.
running a tight business. So here is the steps for running the tight business. Document your business processes. Okay, so one of them's your contract. I do a lot of that, but how about your intake process, how you vet your clients? what your unique process is. And you've probably heard me say this before, that no two designers do things the same way when it comes to how they do their presentations, how they, vet their clients, whatever those beginning steps are, the first meeting at the house or online or whatever it is, everyone's different. The presentation, do you do a mood board? Do you do a
Oh
3D
God, no.
something? Do they come in person and sit on chairs? Everyone's different.
Okay,
You
wait a minute though. If you're a business of design member, you have all your processes written down already.
There you
You
go.
just
So
have
you're
ours
already a
and you
step
do
in
it
the
the way
right
we
way.
do it. And so
Okay,
you
so
have
that's
it.
that. Then another thing you want to do. So processes, that's like an easy one. Your employee handbook.
Office
Okay, key
manual.
employees, you have if you're looking to sell your business someday, you've got to make sure that you have some control over those key people so that if you're selling the business, they go with the business.
Mhm.
Now, you might have to make a deal with them prior to selling, like right before, and be like, hey, I'm going to get ready to sell. I want you to be on board. So you go along with the business because that's going to increase the value of the sale.
Sure.
Okay. If that person can get up and leave and take all their clients, the price goes down. So
Right.
you want to either have a contract where they have a term where they're going to work with you through that transition, or I mean, that's really the best thing because now you're showing the buyer like, hey, Jane is on board for 5 more years
Right.
and you can take this contract over. She's not going anywhere.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That kind of thing. And you pay Jane a little bit more up front so she stays.
Yeah.
Those assignment agreements I was talking about for your designs and everything they've created. Um, you also want, I'm looking at my notes here, you want to make sure that you can have your personal brand as the owner of the firm. Maybe the firm is in your name, but you really need to start diversifying if possible so that you have revenue streams outside of just you, right?
Right.
So who's bringing in the business? Do you have other deals? Do you have licensing? Do you have whatever it is?
Right.
Try to take your just you as the breadwinner for the firm out of it.
Yeah.
Like have the others start building up business too. And those are things you can do that make your business strong now.
Period.
Even
Yeah.
if you just decide I'm going to just close up shop. Um, yeah, so that's it, the business identity and then the transferable client management protocols. So it's same thing. Like if you were to leave and somebody thinks that you are their designer and that's your client, how can you transition that client to the new person that's there? So you have to have that all kind of figured out. Um, but those are things you should be doing anyway.
Yes.
That just makes it much easier to
That's what's
transfer.
so great about this conversation. It feels like something so daunting, and I can't add this to the list of things I should be doing. There's nothing added. These are the things that you should be doing to run a successful business anyway. It is a
Yeah.
bit for if anybody's like me and I'm not kind of wired naturally for this stuff. I suspect Wendy is. It is a bit like drinking from a fire hose. So we'll just end kind of with this. You probably have more to sell than you think you have to sell. You probably
Mhm.
have more opportunities for succession than you think you have for succession. So it's time now, not tomorrow, but now to start thinking about the end game. How do you wrap this up? And what kind of wealth do you want to grow to get there? I wish I had had that goal for myself way sooner than I did, but I wasn't running a tight business. And if you're not running a tight business, you just don't have time to think about that.
Yeah. And to add two other little comments or one comment, these aren't things that you don't have to even set aside a week of your time to think about it or even a day. Okay. What you need to do is the next time you talk to your lawyer, you say, by the way, what does succession planning look like for me? Like, what would you recommend I do? I mean, I would throw that into any discussion. I'd say what I just said, like tighten up your business. Make sure you have all these controls in place so you really own what you think. Maybe go get a trademark. That's easy. Okay, so it's just something that has like a little value. And the other thing I would say is talk to your accountant as well, because when your
Yes.
accountant is doing your books and records, your accountant is the one that's going to put the price tag on that business. So what you should do, you don't need to do anything special. Okay, you could sell it for a multiplier of your revenue. They have several different ways to figure out a price that are simple. You don't need to get a business valuation, like a formal thing. But ask your accountant because you want to listen, it's like kind of like stepping on the scale, right? It's like, ugh, I don't want to step on the
Here we
scale.
go.
You need to know. You need
Yeah.
to know really what the value is, because guess what? Maybe it's not as much as you thought, or maybe it's way more.
Okay, so can I just say, Wendy, you gave me this advice when we had a meeting
Yeah.
because I'm going through this right now. And I actually had a phone call with my accountant. And in 5 minutes, my accountant said, your business is valued at this. And I just about dropped dead. I had no idea what my business was worth. And I actually have no idea who has that kind of money or how that would ever happen. But now I know. I was shocked. I was
Right.
shocked. And
And to
it could
think,
be the
yeah.
other way. They could say your business is worth far less, in which case, even if it's worth $10,000, isn't it better that you get $10,000 than you get nothing? Like, come on, like
And
there's
you're
something
setting
there,
somebody else up who really wants that.
which feels
I
good.
mean, there's a win-win there, but I think there's just this tendency to stick your head in the sand and not want to think about it because, like I said, the inevitability of it is
Yeah,
scary.
right.
Getting older is scary. Retirement is scary. But don't be the one that hangs on forever. You can still sell or hand over the business and still be involved as long as you
Yeah,
want. In fact, the buyer typically wants that.
would be
So there
lovely.
are ways to do it. And I will say this last plug for lawyers. The lawyers that do this type of work, we're called transactional lawyers. I love it. We're the nice ones. Okay. Like we're not fighting. We're here to make deals. We want to resolve things. We want to help you. And it's very common. This is like a couple pieces of paper and we can have it done for you.
Yeah,
You know, it just
I was
it
shocked how
requires
easy it kind of is to get set up. It's the mental preparation, and that I think you've helped
it's
us with that
it's
too.
like writing a will for your business.
Yeah,
Think about
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Think about that. And I know, I guarantee also many of your listeners don't have their wills either, which is common because it's hard to think about. So it's
yeah.
that kind of planning. And one last, I promise I'll shut up. I promise. The last piece is that actually, when you tie it into your estate planning, you do not want to leave this mess for your kids. Okay. You do
Oh,
not want your kids to have to go into your business books and
so true.
records and figure out what to do. You also don't want your employees to have to deal with your kid being their boss.
Oh my
So there's
gosh.
a lot of things like that where if you start thinking that way, you're going to be like, yeah, I got to pull this together. And if you take one day, 1 year to say, today's the day I'm going to do this. I'm going to meet with the accountant and meet with the lawyer and sit down and I'm going to talk to my employees. You'll get it done one day.
Okay.
Not that
You
hard.
you've inspired me so much. Thank you so so much. And off the top of the show, I gave everybody your coordinates. If you want to know more information about Wendy, and you definitely should hire Wendy, go to
Thank you.
businessofdesign.com where there's more information. We like to end every episode with something called design intervention. And maybe this is really important today because we've had kind of a heavy topic. It's just great piece of business advice you think is worth passing on to any designer who might be listening. It doesn't have to be related to succession, just something, a
Oh my
mantra in your
God.
life
God,
or
there's
a,
so many. Oh,
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I really think, okay, so I do a lot of contracts and negotiations, and that's the only thing I can think about today because prior to this call, I had like 6 phone calls with different designers. But the big thing, there's a couple things. You really absolutely have to know your worth. You do.
yeah.
And as designers, you're all so hard on yourselves. And the best thing you could do is know what a good deal looks like for you and a bad deal. And don't get to the point where you're giving, giving, giving just to get the deal and you've given everything away and now you got the deal, but it's not a good deal. I see it over and over, piecemeal, little bit, give it away, give it away. And now you've got
Heartbreak.
a job, but it's not a good job. And now
Yeah.
you don't understand where you're stuck with it, not making any money for a year and a half. So
Preach.
know your worth, don't give it all away, and don't be afraid to ask for it because I see it every single day.
Oh
It's
my gosh.
rampant.
You know us all too well, Wendy. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
because we're
thank you.
not female lawyers aren't that different.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. Well, hopefully we'll get you back on the podcast. Wait, and we're definitely gonna have you to do more cool things like the exciting seminar we have upcoming about um how you can provide project management in a legal way. So we'll be teasing that and sharing dates for that. And you probably heard it by the time you're listening to this podcast, but all of that information available at businessofdesign.com. Wendy, thank you so much.
Thank you.